Hello and welcome to another Bright Ideas Press Hangout. I'm delighted to have with me today Tyler Hogan, the president of Bright Ideas Press, and he's going to be delivering to us a short talk about how to make education edible. Yes, you heard that right. We're going to be talking about eating and learning at the same time. So, Tyler, I love to eat and I love to learn. Tell us, how can you combine education with eating?
Well, fortunately, it's really easy because most people love to eat and most people enjoy learning as well. And eating and cooking are such great multi-sensory events that help get all of our senses engaged. And the more senses that you engage, the more you retain as you're learning new things. So, especially if you've got kinesthetic learners, this is great for that kind of learning style, and it just builds really good, strong memories. So there's lots of different ways that you can incorporate food into your homeschool, and a lot of it depends on what subject you're studying and how you want to incorporate it. So a lot of my favorite school memories growing up are food-related memories, and a lot of those took place in either history or literature class. I remember I was probably about 5 or 6 years old, and my older brother was in a co-op studying ancient Greece, and they had just done a big section on the Olympics, and were reading about how the Greeks would celebrate during the Olympics, and a big part of their celebration was a feast. So our co-op got together, and every family contributed a couple of different dishes, and we had our own Olympics and Greek feast day. So it was a backyard Olympics, which was great fun. We had javelin throwing and discus tosses, and I don't think we did wrestling, but we did have some races and other fun stuff, which was great fun for everybody. And then we went inside after all the kids were good and tired and hungry, and we tried all of these different great Greek dishes and salads and baklava and other fun stuff. Some of it was more modern, some of it was closer to the ancient recipes. And some of it was delicious, and some of it was just not to my taste at the time. But I mean, you don't really expect a 6-year-old to have great taste. But regardless of how well it turned out, it built a memory. And it made that particular day and that particular unit something that stuck in my mind for the long haul. It wasn't just a unit that we did and then went in one ear and out the other. Having the food and the activity and all that wrapped together helped make it stick.
And for people who use the Mystery of History, we have a cookbook, don't we, for the Mystery of History Volume 2?
We do, yeah. We had a lady go through and do a lot of research into the kinds of foods that different cultures all over the world ate, what they ate during that time period. And so she went and she cooked all those recipes up and gave them a shot and took some incredible, beautiful photographs. So yeah, the Mystery of History Volume 2 cookbook is one of my favorite supplements that we sell.
So that makes it easy for a mom who has no idea where to start with historical recipes. That's a great
Exactly.
idea.
Yeah, there's lots of websites where you can find historical recipes, and with history, it's really nice and easy because there's a lot of good documentation out there. With literature, there's a number of books that lean very heavily on the food descriptions, whether they're historical fiction or even certain fantasy stories like The Hobbit and the Redwall series. I mean, half of Redwall is just talking about what kind of food they're eating that day. So getting a chance to try some of those recipes out. And then good historical fiction like, The Little House on the Prairie series. I remember reading Farmer Boy out loud with my mom when I was a little kid and hearing about how they made donuts. And that was just such a novel idea. I thought donuts came from Dunkin' Donuts. I didn't realize that was something you could make at home. I don't remember if we actually turned around and tried that recipe out after reading that, but it's like, oh, that sounds doable. And some books are all about food. Like there's a story for younger kids called George Washington's Breakfast, which is a great little story, and it's all about here's what historical figures ate, and here's how you could make that today if you wanted to. Geography also ties in really nicely with this, because there's cookbooks from around the world. In fact, I think there's a cookbook called Eat Your Way Around the World, which is just delightful. And then there's an American version, Eat Your Way Through the 50 States. And you can find those pretty easily online. But the idea is just, find recipes that the folks that you're reading about would have eaten, and immerse yourself in their culture by trying out those recipes yourself.
That's a great idea. It's just like when we travel, we always want to eat local and eat the delicacies of the place where we are. So same thing when we're studying, right? We want to experience everything that we can. So I love this idea. What are some other ideas that we can incorporate food into our homeschool?
Well, food also can be used as a reward system. If you haven't already tried using mini marshmallows and chocolate chips to motivate your elementary school students to fill out their math sheets or learn their spelling words properly, or anything that involves memorization. I used to have those math sheets that had 3 columns of problems, and at the bottom of every column was a marshmallow. And as soon as I finished all those problems, I got to have the marshmallow. And spelling words, when we do oral quizzes, if I got the word right, she'd toss me a chocolate chip and I'd try and catch it in my mouth. And you can go overboard with that, and you don't want to resort to bribery. But there's a big difference between a reward system and bribery. So I think using food as a reward when you get things right is a great way to encourage kids to really put the effort in and do the work.
It certainly is motivating, and I know there are a lot of homeschool moms that would be motivated by a handful of M&Ms.
Yes, or little Hershey's Kisses or what have you. Find whatever your favorite is, buy a bag of that as soon as Halloween is over, and just keep it as your little self-motivation jar.
Right. So what about math? Can we use food with math?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, anytime you're in the kitchen, you're living a math lesson. One of the best classes that I took in junior high was a home economics class where we spent a lot of time in the kitchen. But even before junior high, Mom had me helping her with dinner on a regular basis in the kitchen. So I was getting a very hands-on education about fractions, and here's how you double and triple a recipe, and here's what happens if you get the recipe wrong. If you do the math wrong while you're making bread, there are consequences to that. I'll never forget the time that we made the simple little mistake of getting the sugar and the salt quantities mixed up. And we wound up with what looked like an atomic mushroom cloud of bread that was just the nastiest thing we had ever eaten. Or even something like doing algebraic equations, trying to figure out how much food you need to make depending on how many people you're going to be feeding. If you have a bunch of people coming over for Thanksgiving dinner, well, how much do you estimate each person's going to eat? And you might even have a couple of different variables based on age or gender, or how much that person really enjoys their meals, or how much they just tend not to be, or if they're really picky. Those are all variables that you can factor in to say, all right, how many pounds of turkey do you think we actually need to purchase and and prepare? How many broccoli casseroles need to be made so that nobody's left hungry? And do we want lots of leftovers? And if so, how's that going to influence our shopping and our buying decisions? So, and you can take that not just to the kitchen, you can take that to the grocery store. I mean, that's a great education right there, is shopping for sales and calculating unit prices and figuring out, is it better to get the 2 small cans of peanut butter or the 1 big one? And depending on where you go and what brand it is, and if there's a store brand, all of those factor in. And kids need to learn that kind of stuff. So there's lots of practical math that can happen in the kitchen.
Those are great life skills, as well as, you've got dinner on the table because your kids are helping you to cook. So those are wonderful.
I look forward to that day.
It will happen. So I know you have another great idea about making edible models. Tell us about those.
So probably my favorite food-related memory was when we were studying biology, and we had just finished a unit on the structure of cells. So we thought we would cap that unit off by making a 3D model using a clear bowl and a bunch of green Jello. So we filled it just like a quarter of the way up with Jello, and then we started adding in other foodstuffs as the different organelles of the cells. So we had, little peppermint candies and pasta and the long strings of spaghetti that we kind of wrapped around that. That was the endoplasmic reticulum. And the only reason I even remember that word is because I know that was the spaghetti noodle. And then we had a big hard-boiled egg in the middle for the nucleus. So we just kind of layered, add a few more foodstuffs, add some more Jello, chill it, do the next layer. And I think we had 4 or 5 layers by the time we were done. And when we were finished, we had this beautiful 3D cell that you could turn and look at. And because we used a nice clear bowl, you could see all the way through it and just see how these different organelles were interacting with each other. And then when we were done, we got to eat it. And, my brother and I consumed a lot of green Jello that day with suspicious pasta mixed in with it, which was weird, but you're talking about 2 little boys, so they don't care if it's tasty or not. They just love the fact that it's green.
Sometimes the gross factor is what's appealing to little boys, right?
Exactly, yes. So you can make 3D models of cells using Jello, or you can do something a little simpler. If any of you guys have ever made a salt dome map, salt dome maps are great. I love salt dome maps. Nothing gets you engaged with topography like a salt dome map can. But even better than a salt dome map is a cookie dough map, because a cookie dough map can be eaten afterwards and it doesn't take up space for the long term. You have it around just long enough to photograph it, and then you can dig in. I taught a North Star geography in a co-op a couple years back, and one of our students, for extra credit, she baked a tray of cupcakes, and she had them nice and close together and frosted them all as a unit, and she filled in her outline map of South America, which was assigned that week, and just filled it in using icing on the cupcakes. And that was great, saved on paper, and everybody got to enjoy the cupcakes afterwards. So cookie dough maps are great, cupcake maps are great. Or if you've got kids who are really kinesthetic, one thing you can do is, instead of making a boring little gingerbread house, make a gingerbread model of the pyramids or Solomon's Temple or the Jamestown Stockade, or just any piece of architecture that you're studying about in history class. You can probably make it out of gingerbread or graham crackers or something like that. But those kinds of model making, they're so much fun. I remember almost every model that I made with my family growing up, just because that kinesthetic engagement is so important and helpful. And then, as long as you're making it with food, cleanup is the easiest part.
That's great. These are great ideas, Tyler. And as a parent, that when you implement an edible project in school, your kids' motivation is going to increase immediately. They're going to be excited. You're going to have a great attitude facing you that day from your kids. So it's just a great way to add variety to your homeschool day. So encourage everybody to go to the Bright Ideas Press site and look for the Mystery of History 2 cookbook. And also, Tyler has a great old blog post there about marshmallows. And if you'll just go to our site and search the word marshmallows, you will find that wonderful story about his childhood memory.
Yeah, well, so I hope you guys enjoy that. The nice thing about these kinds of tips is that they're really easy to integrate. You don't have to plan, more than a day in advance. As long as you have the stuff on hand, you're good to go. And don't stress yourself out about it. It's not worth getting stressed about. It's just a way to make things more fun and more engaging that day.
Excellent. You hear that, everyone? Keep it low key. Just have fun. Do not get stressed. It doesn't have to be picture perfect. It's about experiences with your kids and learning alongside them. So thank you.
Sometimes when it all blows up and nothing turns out the right way and you get atomic mushroom cloud bread, those are good memories too, even if it doesn't look like it turned out well.
That is a great reminder for all the parents out there. So Thanks for watching, everybody. If you loved this video, share it with others, and we'd love to hear about your edible projects. Just leave us a comment right here on the YouTube video. We'd love to know what you do to add edible projects to your homeschool. And we'll see you guys again next month. Bye-bye, everybody.
Take care.